Welcome to The Rebound with Coach Matt Doherty.
Welcome to The Rebound. I'm Matt Doherty, and I'll be your host. With me today is Matt and Kim Matone. They were high school sweethearts and ended up co-founding Matone Counseling and Testing, a multi-location mental health practice in North Carolina. Their mission is to make mental health services more accessible. Matt, Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to see you, Matt.
Yeah, of course. Tell us about your journey that started in high school when you first met.
Okay, here's the hard part because I always want to talk, and so does Kim. I'll start. And
yeah, way to defer, Matt.
Yeah. No, we met at East Buckenburg High School in 1985. We were both members of the track and cross country team. So I can't tell you.
Captains.
Yeah, we were both She was captain of the women's cross country team. I was captain of the men's cross country team by the time we graduated. And unlike most couples, I can't tell you the first time we met. We were just at track practice together as kids.
Mm-hmm. And psychology class.
And we had psychology class together as sophomores in high school, which I guess we should have known that someday we'd own a psychology practice together.
Yeah, well, that's pretty advanced for high school to have psychology, actually. I mean,
in 1985.
Yeah, that's pretty advanced. And then tell us, what was next? How did things evolve? College, business, first job?
Yeah, so we dated a little bit our senior year. Well, I guess about halfway through our senior year. I kind of pursued Kim for all of my sophomore and junior year. She finally went out on a date with me by our senior year. Then I went off to NC State for a brief stay in Raleigh. And she went down to the University of Georgia, where she was recruited to run track.
Right.
So we split up when we went off to college, but we would reunite over breaks, and we never strayed too far from each other. And we ended up getting married when we were 22.
Right.
Wow.
I had completed college.
Yeah.
I had not.
I'm glad Kim clarified that. And just for the audience, I've gotten to know Matt and Kim through executive coaching, and Matt and I've worked very closely in the peer advisory group that I run through Vistage. And it's been really cool getting to know you and you both and what you do and the why. And I think, really this audience is really, business owners, leaders, entrepreneurs, and knowing your why. So, Kim, what was your why when you got into the mental health field? Why did you feel the calling to do this?
Yeah. I've always enjoyed serving or being in a helping profession. I have had my own history of mental health challenges. And so wanting to give back, I had been on the prevention side of substance use disorders and bullying. I would go to schools, homeless shelters, other nonprofits, and give classes on that. And I was also part of the Drug Free Coalition here in Charlotte. And then really felt empowered to go back to school and what I had really wanted to do from, if I hadn't come back to Charlotte and married Matt, I would have wanted to become a psychologist. And so I got pretty close and became a licensed clinical counselor.
Mm-hmm. And then Matt, tell us about your journey. You got into the banking business at Bank of America, and then after a few years you left. Talk about that. And then again, what's your why with Matone Counseling?
Yeah. So when I was 25, we'd been married about 3 years, and I took an entry-level position at what was then Nations Bank, prior to us taking over the world. That was back when Nations Bank was just operating in like 7 or 8 states, but it was very much just a place where I could thrive. absolutely loved the first, I don't know, well, almost all of my career there was just fantastic. I did a lot of different things. I was always on the small business and commercial banking side in some way, shape, or form. I was in sales. I was in call centers. By the time I left the bank, it had been 19 years, and I started as a customer service rep in the call center, making $9.40 an hour. 19 years later, I retired, as they called it. I was a senior executive, and I ran the small business call centers, the sales side of the small business call centers nationally. It was kind of my dream job. But it came to an end one Friday afternoon, unexpectedly. And at the time, Kim was a student finishing up her master's degree to become a counselor.
Right.
So we just kind of circumstance and opportunity collided. It was clear my banking career was over. There were opportunities for me to stay at the bank, but it would have been taking a step backwards professionally. It wasn't something I was interested to do. And for me to continue at the level that I was at, I would have to move. We had kids in high school. Kim was finishing up her master's. That wasn't in the cards.
Yeah.
So we decided to start a business.
Well, this is where this is where I think there's a lot of meat on the bone for our audience. Like, why do you start? How do you start? And really turning a bad situation, getting the squeezing the lemon and getting lemonade. And you were, asked to retire or step.
I was fired.
Okay. All right. Thank you. You were fired. I know. I resigned too from a job. Yeah. And, but that's like your lowest moment.
Yeah.
But without that, you don't probably start Matone Counseling, right?
There's almost no chance. No. No, that happened in late January of 2015. So 10 years ago. We established that. And I was very fortunate. I received a very generous severance package that gave us a lot of flexibility. There was a time limit on it, though. We had to get something going. We actually formed the corporation less than 90 days after my last day at the bank. At the time, this is pre-COVID, we looked at a few different things. So I have this long background in commercial and small business banking. I had some decent financial acumen. I'd worked with thousands of small business owners at that point in time. So part of my why is I wanted to own my own company for a long time, but the only way I would ever do it is if I was asked to leave the bank. I'm sure I'm still there today. Otherwise. That's right.
Yeah. And so sometimes it's a blessing at the moment. It's hard to understand that, right? And so what advice would you give your younger self in that moment? Like, you have kids. So if that were to happen to your son or daughter, having gone through it, what would you tell them?
Yeah, it's funny because I kind of did this tour of Charlotte and met with executives who'd been bounced from the bank, and they all said the exact same thing. They said, it's the best thing that ever happened to you. Yeah. Now you get to do whatever you want. And I heard that again and again and again. It was a tough end of my career there, but I learned so many things, and all of those skills, I still use them every day. I mean, the bank is a great place to learn. So I guess the advice I would give is, congratulations, you're free. Now apply everything you've learned.
I remember when I was fired at North Carolina, or I resigned at North Carolina as the head coach, I went around like you to meet with different coaches and network and see what other coaches were doing with practice and player development. And Del Harris, who was an assistant with the Dallas Mavericks, I remember walking in. Rick Carlisle was the head coach. Rick now with the Pacers. And Del Harris, first thing he said is reached out, shook my hand, said, congratulations, you're officially a coach. You've been fired. Yeah. And we sometimes say such bad things to ourselves and don't see the goodness and the opportunity that it just created. So, all right. So, Matt, dive a little deeper about your why, and you can tell a little bit of your story about addiction.
Yeah. So I it's funny, when I lost my job at the bank, I was 3 years sober. I spent the majority of my career hiding a pretty significant substance abuse problem. I hit it well. Nothing happened during the workday, but man, when the day ended, I would start drinking. So I won't go into a ton of detail about that other than say it got pretty bad. I kind of hit rock bottom in 2012. Actually, 4 days ago was my 13th sober birthday. So part of my why, there's a 12-step group that I'm a part of, and we have something that we call the responsibility statement. And what it basically says is that we need to pass on what was given to us. And that's the gift of recovery. A lot of people, I didn't do it on my own. When I tried to stop drinking on my own, it never worked. But when I engaged in a fellowship of other people that were seeking the same thing, I found success, and it's my responsibility to pass that along. So working in the mental health space, even though I don't treat people directly like Kim does, I do get to enable it by setting up the operations and the scheduling and the billing and all the legal stuff that enables the practice to work. Mm-hmm. So when we were looking at what are we going to do next, there were a few things we looked at. We looked at franchises, right? We started with exercise franchises because we're both real into fitness.
Yep.
We looked at haircut franchises because we're both familiar with getting our haircut. And then luckily, now both of those businesses did very poorly in COVID. Luckily, we settled on mental health counseling. There was at the time one national franchise outfit called ThriveWorks that was selling franchises, and there was none in North Carolina, and that's how we got started. We contracted with them. They were out of Lynchburg, Virginia, and we were operating in July of that year, just less than 6 months after my banking career ended. So it was just this perfect combination of Kim's pursuing a master's to become a counselor and has this great background in mental health and wellness. I had some passion around helping people find recovery, and I had a decent set of tools when it came to small business.
Yep.
And we dove in, and
what was that first aha moment where you got excited, you got your name on a door, or you got a business card, or somebody actually became a client, or the fax machine worked? What was the first?
You probably get a good one on that.
I remember when we first got our first client, we were at home, and Matt would take the phone calls himself and did all the scheduling for quite some time. And so he did that. It was July 17th, which is actually our wedding anniversary too. So things like that just seem to happen in our life.
It was crazy. That was our 23rd anniversary, 24th. How long have we been?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, don't do that. Not on the show.
Almost 32 years.
Please. Don't kill the show. Yeah.
We've been married a while.
No, that was the big one. We got that first client because we were just going nuts. We had hired a couple of counselors. We'd done everything that the franchisor had told us about getting the website set up, and man, that first client came through. We were just so excited.
Did you smother the client?
It was hard not to greet them at the door.
Yeah.
But you had to give them a normal experience.
Yeah, send the limo for them.
Yeah.
Now, why franchising? What's the positive to there's a lot of people hopefully watching this show, listening to the show, that are going through the same decision making that you're going through. Franchising or start on my own. Buying a business in a box, the franchising, or do my own thing. Why did you guys go franchising, and what advice would you give somebody that's considering those options today?
Yeah, I would just say the main reason was just you're basically purchasing an operating system. You're buying into something that already works. I knew my way around financial statements, but I didn't know how to contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield to provide mental health services.
Right.
I knew how to run a big call center, but I didn't know how, I didn't know how to advertise on psychologytoday.com and turn that into a client. And the good people at ThriveWorks do all that stuff.
So you were with ThriveWorks for how long?
For 5 years. So
then what happened?
Yeah, we had a 5-year contract with them. There basically was, over that 5 years, they had a strategic change in the way they were doing business, where they began to buy out franchisees. And they went more of they went to a corporate model where all their, I don't know that all of their locations are corporate owned now, but the vast majority of them are. So they wanted to buy us. We didn't necessarily want to sell. And we just came to an agreement that at the end of our contract, we would operate in the same location under a new name, Matone Counseling and Testing. They would take over the Charlotte market for ThriveWorks. We gave up the website and the phone number. We kept our clinicians. They literally opened up directly next door to us. We happen to be in a field where it's very much a field of abundance, where there's more clients than can currently be served. So we weren't threatened by each other. It was a good experience. I still check in with their CEO and chairman periodically to see how he's doing. It was seamless. And then that's an unusual experience, by the way. It's typically very difficult to get out of a franchise relationship. We were very fortunate.
We did slowly start to take over some of those responsibilities ourselves, like that's doing the billing.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So one of the great benefits of a franchise, I'll get a little more into detail to answer the first part of your question, is systems. So billing systems. They did a lot of the insurance billing for us for a fee. Credentialing, which is contracting with insurance companies, they did that for a fee. Scheduling, they had a scheduling desk that supported me. They did that for a fee. Well, over time, it became clear that we could build those systems ourselves.
And I know how much you love fees.
Yes. Yeah. So their fees were reasonable, but it was cheaper for us to build it on our own. So by the time our 5 years came up, we were not using them for billing. We were doing it internally. We were not using them for scheduling or credentialing. We were doing all of that internally. Basically, we were paying a royalty for a really good website. So there was a little fear about going out on our own, but what it really came down to, is Kim and I looked at it, is we just have to invest a bunch of money in a website. That's all they're providing us at this point.
Right.
And they were providing us some other support. I could call and talk to somebody, but by and large, all the operational stuff we had built by then.
Yeah.
Interesting. Just shut it off and start operating.
You and Kim, is it 50-50 ownership?
No, it's 0 and 100.
Gotcha. How are decisions, like an operating agreement, how are decisions made?
It's 50-50. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I have, because legalities, I have someone that owns a private mental health counseling practice in North Carolina has to be licensed and mental health.
Gotcha.
And so I am. And so it goes under my name. Now, we are partners. We are co-founders. I really don't like when I like us to just, we're partners. And so it's 50-50. And definitely, obviously, what's crazy about in school, kind of backing up a little bit, is that they don't teach you a business side of how to start a mental health practice. And so I was going in with that blind, and we thought he'd be helping me, and it'd be a part-time gig in the garage for me. Yeah,
that's an important part of it. Initially, I was just going to help her kind of set everything up, and then I was going to go find a job in finance and do what I'd been doing. But it just became very clear very quickly that there was huge opportunity. I was enjoying it. There was a role for me in the company. So I don't technically own anything. I mean, just to be clear, from an operating agreement perspective, I can do anything on behalf of the company.
Right.
Kim and I trust each other. So
what did you enjoy most? You said you enjoyed it. What did you realize, like, oh my gosh, this is like a lot of fun. It's a lot better than working at a large bank. OMJ Clothing is an elite men's clothing store that provides a vast array of spectacular brands of men's lifestyle apparel for every day. Elevate your business upscale casual at OMJ. success comes from standing out.
Yeah, I just, and I love Bank of America. Anybody from the bank that's watching, I loved it there. I learned so many things. The bureaucracy is miserable. So just being able to make decisions quickly, just Kim and I would talk to each other and we'd make a decision. Now there's a little more to it now that we've grown to the size that we've grown, but we still make decisions quickly. It's really different in corporate America, where you have governance processes. You got HR, you got legal, you got all these people you got to please. Whereas in a company this size, we can just do what's right because we believe it's right. Now we'll check with the attorney, we'll check with the accountant,
right?
But it's really that ability to move quickly and just take advantage of market opportunities and do the things that you believe are right. And it was really difficult to do that in corporate America.
So 50-50 on the decision making. There's a lot of decisions to make. Tell the audience how decisions are made, and when did you ever, disagree and can't come to a stalemate? What breaks the tie with you two?
That's an interesting one. It's 50-50 depending on the decision. I don't meddle too much in clinical decisions. That would be inappropriate. Kim doesn't meddle too much when I'm making financial decisions, if it's me and the accountant talking about something. So we kind of know our lanes. I'd say where we've run into it before. And I think the tiebreaker is if one of us is just adamant that this must not be. I think we get to say no. I remember one time I wanted to take over. I was in my growth phase and I wanted to take over an additional suite in one of the buildings we were in. And Kim just said, no, we're not ready for that. And I didn't argue because of the way she said it. I just didn't argue. Now we eventually did take over that suite, but it was like 3 years later and the time was right. So
you didn't argue. You're a smart man.
Well, I have argued on other ones, but not on that one.
What was the biggest? Well, Kim, this is she owns 100% of the business. It's a 50-50 decision-making process, but yet Matt speaks 98% of the time. So Kim, Kim, what was maybe the biggest thing that you maybe argued about with Matt in terms of the business?
It's been over hiring people.
Been certain people with hiring and with advancements. And I tend to
quiet Matt.
I tend to be a little more giving. Our CEO, one thing she told me was funny that she says that who is now our CEO, said that I can be like Oprah. You get a car, you get a raise, you get this, So that's just in me, And I worked for nonprofits my whole life, and I'm very much for advancement for women. And so I'm very much of we're going to give this many weeks for maternity leave. We're going to give an extra amount for salary increase. And I think those have been sometimes.
Yeah, we've had some disagreements on things like that. And that's where it does kind of have to be 50-50. I know there's Kim and I used to do all the hiring, and sometimes we would disagree on whether we should hire someone. And sometimes I would win the argument, sometimes she would.
Right.
And that's just sort of case by case. But
so go ahead, Kim.
We found Blair, Dr. Blair Hamill, who she's been a huge piece of the company and being able to balance the two of us.
Right.
And that you mentioned that she kind of is a tiebreaker in a sense a lot of the time, because she'll either side with one or the other, and then it's kind of like, well, if she's siding with Kim, I'm not going to argue with the two of them.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here. The thing that is really interesting is you both mention your CEO, but yet you guys are the founders and the owners of the company, but yet you have a CEO. And Matt, you can share how much you want to share or not share about, the moment with your peer advisory group.
Yeah.
And the moment you realized that maybe I need to step out of that chair. It's weird for someone to be the owner, the founder, and give up that control. Talk about that, please.
Yeah. So so we were at a Vistage meeting 2 years ago. It was about 2 years ago this month. I remember it was summertime, and I hope I don't violate any rules.
No, you can curse. You can say whatever you want on the show.
So we're going around the room doing an update, which we do each meeting, just say what's going on in our lives and careers. And I said something to the effect of, I've been frustrated at work lately. I've been showing up at meetings and I've just been kind of being a dick to everybody.
Yeah. I remember it.
Yeah. And one of the guys in the room, Jason, it's funny, Kim and I are having dinner tomorrow night with Jason and his wife. Jason raised his hand and said, wait a minute, we need to process that one.
Yeah.
So,
and within 6 months.
6 months. Yeah.
You promoted Blair, Dr. Hamill, to the CEO.
Yeah, it was a multiple steps to it, but yeah, that's where she ended up.
So talk, this is, now I'd love for you to talk about the value of peer advisory and executive coaching. How did the group help you process that issue?
Yeah, it was great. It was because different people in the room had different experiences, similar experiences, either as the recipient of or working for somebody who'd been through that or being through it themselves. So I just got a lot of good advice. Mm-hmm. And you had worked with my team to implement
EOS.
Thank you. My mind went blank. Yep. Implement EOS. So you had met my leadership team. I mean, you had met Dr. Hamill. You had met everybody involved. Dr. Hamill had been with us since the very beginning. We had made her our first clinical director. When she moved her family to Asheville, she was going to leave the company. This is 5 or 6 years ago. And when we said, you know what, you're not leaving the company. We're going to move it. We're going to open an office in Asheville if you're going to be there. So she was that important to us. She was one of our first employees. So we knew that we wanted to be in business with Blair. And we wanted to be in business with Blair for a long, long time. And it really was just the natural next move. It gave me the opportunity to step into, I'm CFO, which is a natural role for me to play. I still meet with Blair once a week and I'll provide her advice when she needs it. But it's also really gratifying for us to see somebody like her who joined us as an independent contractor that was working nights and weekends to grow into a CEO. And you mentioned why. I mean, one of the most exciting whys is to get to not just create jobs, but to get to create career paths.
Yeah.
So we've had counselors who moved into operations roles. We have one that's our CEO.
Each of our clinical directors were counselors.
Yeah. All of our clinical directors were promoted from within. So, and the peer advisory group was central to that. We had offline calls, the Tiger Team calls, where I'd get 3 or 4 people together to talk about, the hard question like, well, what does a comp plan look like for a CEO when you've never had a CEO before? I mean, I was operating as a CEO, but my comp plan was the very bottom line of the P&L.
That's right. Right.
So we had to create a new plan that had things like profit shares and a salary and a retirement plan and all of these things that we had never had before. And that's where it was super valuable to be in a room full of CEOs and chairs who had done this kind of work before.
Yeah.
So I remember one instrumental call that you facilitated for me where we had 3 or 4 of the members. And I sent everybody a Word document with a proposal on a comp plan. And it was essentially blessed by that group with a couple of notes on ideas on how to enhance it. But man, I walked out of that meeting. Okay. I was like, well, I've had 4 or 5 really smart people look at this thing.
The value of a peer advisory group, and with a group like Vistage, that you have people that we talk about being carefrontational, intelligent people who have had similar experience in different industries, so they're not competing with you. They just want the best for you, and you get real, valuable information that is the truth, whether you want to hear it or not, and it helps you validate what you're feeling or challenge your thinking. Yeah. And so That's really cool. I love that story. And just because you own the company doesn't mean you have to run it.
No.
You are the CFO in the org chart answering to the CEO, but yet she answers to you and Kim as the owners of the company.
Yeah, Kim and I operate more as the board of directors now.
Yep.
And Blair runs the day-to-day stuff. I try to meddle, and she says things like, "I've got that covered." I think one happened today. Kim said, "Do we need to do this?" Blair said, "We already did that."
Yeah.
She said, "I think I need to take you off the distribution for the email, the management distribution, where the emails that go to all the clinical directors." Like, why? And she didn't really tell me. She said, "It's time."
It's time. It's time. You have so much respect for her that she can do that, and you don't push back.
No.
One of my favorite stories is the Lysol story.
Yeah.
Can we share that?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I had not ordered Lysol in almost 3 years.
Because
Did I run the story?
one of the hardest things for entrepreneurs to do is to delegate and to give up control and trust and train and operate out of fear, obligation, guilt. We talk about fog and I don't want to give this up. No one can do it as well as I can, or I can do it. Why ask somebody else to do it? I've been doing this for years. So let's talk about I think it was like our first or second meeting. Talk about the Lysol story.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. I was still ordering cleaning goods and supplies as the CEO. And you made fun of me, and it was. I think I sent you a picture of me with a box of Lysol. Every person's like, "I'll get the best damn price because nobody cares as much as me." And that's the mindset that you gotta just let go of, man. Right. I mean, that may be true. I may be the best at buying Lysol in the world, but there are better things for me to be doing.
Right. I mean, that's the whole, you go back to the EOS model that you touched on. EOS is the entrepreneur's operating system. There's self-implement. I kind of held your hand through that process, if you will. But, I talk about the organizational triangle, and every organization is made up of talent, systems, and culture. And the system down here is something like EOS. How do you organize your business? How do you meet? What does your org chart look like? Do you delegate and elevate? And identifying roles. What are your standard operating procedures? All those things is really powerful tool with EOS. And then the culture piece, which we worked on a lot with core values and behaviors. And the better that these, the base of this triangle is, the better talent you can attract. So you have talent, systems, and culture. The better the base is, the better you can attract talent, train talent, and retain talent. And because you had good systems and good culture, you got to retain somebody like Blair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. What about family-run business? Do you have any boundaries, like when you come home from work? Like what nerve struck? Like, are there rules like we don't talk about work at home, or we don't talk about work at home after 7:00, or is it just a free for all? How does that work?
Can I take the first swing? Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty good now. There was a time when
wait, back up. I heard the word now.
Right, now. Yeah. And we don't necessarily have any rules about it. There's nothing written in where we point and say, we agreed on this, but we had it out a few times. I work very early in the morning, and after about 8 or 9, I'm not real interested in work. Kim is the complete opposite. She tends to her brain is still going at night. And there were times, I remember one time I'm laying in bed staring at the TV, maybe half asleep, and she came in to tell me about some HR incident with one of our counselors. And man, I just got mad. I was like, I am off the clock. I'm in bed. And we just kind of had it out. And I don't know that was the last time that ever happened, but it kind of tended to stop. There was also early on, Kim would want to process things. She processes verbally and she likes to talk through things. And I'm a little bit different. So we've just sort of learned. A big one for us too was when we opened our second location.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I stayed at the original, my office stayed at the original location, and Kim's office became our Arboretum South Charlotte office. So that was just,
we needed space.
That changed the world because
I would hear him.
Yeah, she would hear me and she would cringe.
I would be with a patient, and he is not a real quiet person.
No, Matt. No, Matt's not. Well, really?
I'm kind of big and kind of clumsy, and you can hear me coming.
I could hear him coming up the steps, and I would just start, like cringing that he needed to be more quiet in our therapeutic space. But so it really did help once but that was after 4 years.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years.
We had for us to be in separate locations.
Yeah, I mean, we just developed respect for each other, honestly. Kim respects the time that I'm going to be. If it's an emergency, she can talk to me at 10 o'clock about work. But
it's natural. Anybody who is going to have a successful business at first, they pretty much live and breathe.
That's right.
The company. And that's what we did. It consumed us. And we're also, it's not just a company to us. We are passionate about it. It is something that we hold dear to us because we believe we're making a difference in people's lives.
Well, both of our lives were saved by mental health professionals. I'm going to put that out there right now. So our mission is of being accessible to the community is very real. Lots of people, not just the two of us, but lots of people in our extended family, who've been through counseling, have been to treatment centers. It's life or death. And we take it that seriously. We want to help as many people in the communities we serve as possible. So that's always kind of at the top.
Yeah, we get excited about new ideas.
Yeah, we do.
Yep.
And we can be pretty impulsive sometimes together, and we can encourage each other. But I think that's, impulsive, but we're also competitive. And I think it goes down, I love always talking with you, Matt, because of the athletics and because that's how we met, and we both are competitive, and we know that we can challenge each other.
And I remember one time I said, I want to be the biggest psych practice in Charlotte. And Kim said, I want to be the best. And Blair said, let's be both.
I find, thank you for bringing that up, Kim, because I've talked with a lot of, entrepreneurs and successful companies. And I do, and this sounds self-serving, but I do find that there's an added benefit to have someone from an athletic background on your team, because they understand resilience, they understand prep, they understand losing, they understand working together, setting goals, overcoming adversity. How has your experiences as track athletes translated and show up at Matone Counseling?
Well, I think that's just that there's that natural drive there.
We like to win.
We like to win.
And you just have to redefine what winning is. There's not a finish line. We're not trying to set a record time. But we have goals, and we want to meet them. And our goals, and Matt, you've been with us when we wrote a lot of our goals.
Putting together the best team, we recognized that. That was huge. We realized pretty early on, we thought, okay, are we going to be a substance use disorder practice? Are we going to concentrate on eating disorders? What are we going to do? And we quickly realized, no, we're going to find people that are the right fit and are good cultural fit and are good. And so we learned how to put together a team. And I think that goes to our team spirit.
Yeah, and this is a good sports analogy. We draft the best talent available. We don't try to fill a position.
Yeah, I love it. Wow. That's a nugget right there, audience. Repeat that, Matt.
Yeah, we draft the best available talent, period.
Right.
We are looking for, when we look for counselors, sure, we ask them what they like to treat and what kind of patients they like to see, but we're looking at something different. We can fill your caseload. Okay. We're looking for talented, resilient, hardworking, passionate counselors who want to help people. And whoever they help, whether it's kids or adults, they treat eating disorders or depression, anxiety, that doesn't matter to us.
Right.
We're going to find them their patients. We just want the right people in the building. So, I mean, I think the sports analogy, it gets to that. It's building a great team. It's identifying goals, meeting them, and crushing them. So whether it's the number of clinical hours we provide on a weekly basis, whether it's financial goals, that have dollars associated with them, I translate winning into meeting and beating and crushing those goals.
Right. Right. Yeah. How do you celebrate? I find this a challenge as I work with business owners and CEOs. Like you touched on, there's a finish line in sports, right? Whether, the finish line of an actual race in a track meet, or the season, a year-end tournament, or, in my case, the NCAA tournament, and you could point to that. And then you knew whether you won or lost, and then you celebrated or you cried. How do you create that sense of urgency and that vision? Because I think casting the vision is one of the most important things a business owner and CEO can do. How do you create, all right, this is winning, like you just said, and then do you celebrate it?
Honestly, I think that's an area that we've got some opportunity to improve upon. I think we do a good job of that at the management team level. And a lot of that's through the EOS disciplines of the quarterly meetings and the annual meetings and the scorecards and the report outs and the one-on-one conversations and the one-on-one meetings we have.
Right.
But honestly, as you say that, and as Kim and I look at each other, I think we could do a better job with the 70 plus clinical staff that spends most of their time talking to patients, engaging them on some of that. And I'm not saying we don't do it. I mean, we have big events for the team. We have,
that's part of it.
We have our Matone meetups, which are these community events where we go out and have fun together. We have our annual big party, both in the summertime for the families and then holidays for just
and we
the
do
staff.
it big.
And we do them
celebrate
big. Yeah, we do them big. We have a quarterly staff member of the quarter where we'll reward somebody who's a shining example of our core values. We have quarterly financial incentives for the clinical team when they meet their goals. But I think I don't know that I've ever been in a company that couldn't improve upon that one. As far as getting it all the way down to the entire staff.
Well, you mentioned core values, and I'm a stickler with core values. I believe in core values to help drive a good culture. And I'm going to put you on the spot. What are your core values?
Yeah. Do you want to do it? Or
accessibility, compassion, integrity, and diversity.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that?
Accessibility,
compassion, diversity, and integrity. And I never finish that sentence without saying, they're all important, but to me, accessibility is the one that we talk most about at our company. Based on our personal experience, trying to find help for ourselves and our family.
Yeah. And
just the current position that we're in Charlotte and most of America, frankly, where there's a shortage of mental health professionals and really just difficulty
using your insurance
for people of all walks of life to be able to get the help that they need.
So how do you leverage, and I think this is important, your core values throughout the organization, whether it be hiring, training, disciplining, firing, marketing? How do you leverage, accessibility, compassion, integrity, I think it was, and diversity?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. And each one of those refers to so many different things. The accessibility one, if a clinician is not making themselves accessible, they're not probably a good fit. And when I say that, meaning they're not willing to take new clients, or they're not willing to take the insurance plans that we're contracted with. Probably not a good fit. So maybe we don't renew their contract. When it comes to integrity, that's a big one. Don't really have a lot of issues with that, but I think sometimes on our operations staff, we've had to let some people go when they weren't they weren't acting the way they ought to, and that's a combination of probably compassion, integrity, and maybe even diversity, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. And tell me, when you make a decision like that by letting someone go based on your core values, what impact does that have on the rest of the team?
Yeah, I mean, we had it happen, and I don't want to get into too much detail because I can't, but I will say that it happened in the last year, and we had to let a couple people go on the operations side. And if anything, we waited a year too long.
Right.
And I'll tell you, the team is in a lot better place, and that happened almost overnight.
I've heard this, matter of fact, today in a one-to-one coaching session, you should be slow to hire, fast to fire.
Yeah.
And the general consensus is, after a owner, founder, CEO lets someone go, the common theme is, what took you so long?
Absolutely. And the thing about us at the top, we're only seeing this much. Right. So if I'm seeing behaviors that are unacceptable, and it's probably 10 times worse than I know.
That's right.
That
is right.
Real easy for me to hear the feedback and say, you know what, just deal with it. It's going to be,
I talk about the 6 no's of leadership, and I have this, STEVIT is the name, the acronym STEVIT, and the second T, the last letter, T, know the truth, mind for the truth. And how can you as a leader find out what is going on at the lowest level of your organization that usually you're the last to know? How can we get bad information, get bad news as soon as possible? How do you try to do that at Matone?
Well, I think we have to listen to everybody in the organization. I think we need to go, and I'll tell you, one of the ways we found information, and this is not something that I want to do or that we do on a regular basis, is we had to look at internal chats between teammates and see what people were putting in writing. And it was shocking when we actually took the time to do that and saw some of the things that were going on that was impacting other people on the team. And it's really just, it's so easy just to kind of look the other way and say, well, it'll take care of itself, or everybody's overreacting. And man, you just got to listen to the people and have the relationship with the people throughout the organization that they're willing to come and tell you.
Right. How do you've now multiple locations,
right?
Your team's growing. How many people in Matone Counseling?
I think we've got, all told, about 85. So that's about 70 clinicians. That includes interns, and then about 15 that are either in management or the operations teams.
So I'm going to ask Kim this question, since you keep dominating the ball.
Sorry.
How do you maintain that personal touch, that culture, as you expand to the level you are and potentially beyond?
Okay. So, for example, this week I met with one of our new psychologists, and I met with her for 20 minutes, and I get to know you call, and in that I drop our values again and talk about what our values are and our mission and vision. And so I have that one-on-one connection with them, with a founder. I think that's helpful. And then with our cultural activities, and annually I meet with the clinical staff and with the operations staff and let them know this is what we're doing culturally. This is what we are, the parties we're going to have to celebrate. Right. And then the nonprofits and charities that we are going to support in the community.
Right.
Yeah, Kim does a lot of one-on-one touch points with the clinical staff. I do a fair amount of it with the operations staff.
Yep. I am going to, you touched on another thing. This is what I love about it, interviewing. I've talked a lot lately about the Eisenhower matrix, and Matt I think we talked about that in a recent meeting, and it's basically the 4 quadrants that Dwight Eisenhower looked at, breaking down his time and how to make decisions. And quadrant 1 is important and urgent. Quadrant 2 is important, not urgent. Down, quadrant 3 is urgent, not important. And quadrant 4 is not important, not urgent. And what Kim just described there is quadrant 2 work, where you are building relationships, it's development, it's bigger picture stuff that, you can put off. But the more you put off, the more time you'll spend in quadrant 1, which is basically putting out fires. So, one of the benefits of peer advisory groups like the one that you and I are part of at Vistage is we get people to get out of the weeds, work on the business for at least 1 day a month, and not in the business. And that way, by planning and putting systems in place like EOS, you spend less time putting out fires in quadrant 1 and have more time to drive that culture and share your vision and engage in large business transactions that CEOs and founders should do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. The EOS freed us up significantly. Kim and I don't even go to the weekly management meeting anymore because that thing is so.
They get it done in an hour.
And it's clockwork. It's tasks are assigned and tasks are completed. And we get
what a concept.
Yeah, and we get pulled in when we need to be, and which is a small percentage of the time because the management team is holding themselves accountable.
Well, for the audience, if you want the a copy, a PDF of the Eisenhower time matrix, I will put that on my website. Go to dohertycoaching.com. That's DOHERTY coaching.com, resource page, and I'll have the Eisenhower matrix in there because it's a very simple tool. And I think we, as people that are drivers, ambitious, A-type personalities, we think we've people say, "Oh, how you doing?" "Oh, great. I'm busy. I'm busy." And they brag about being busy. And busy isn't always good. When you're starting the company, you can't help but be busy. But when you reach a certain point, you need to have some white space on that calendar for those Q2, quadrant 2 topics, like development and relationships. So as we wind this down, I would like you, Matt and Kim, to talk about what's next and how anybody that's successful like you all, it becomes a part of you. It's your identity. It's your identity in the community. You're successful. People in the industry know who you are. You were in demand. And then all of a sudden, you reach the pinnacle, and people want to work less, retire, whatever you want to call it. But then there's someone called it PIPS, previously important person. And you guys are young. So how do you deal with that next phase that is coming, is here? How do you deal with that anticipation and your identity?
Yeah, well, Kim, you've reduced your clinical caseload significantly. I'd love to hear your answer to that one.
Yeah, Kim.
Yeah, so I am down to taking 5 clients a week, and I can be pretty strategic as to the type of clients that I want. And I'm looking at learning some new techniques that through like sound therapy that I think is going to be kind of cool just for me to learn something new. COVID was tough. It was tough for therapists to go through that. And we're still having repercussions from COVID for mental health. So it was pretty stressful there for a while. So I realized that I needed to cut back, and my parents are getting older and I want to be a part of that. And I think also just my own need that I want to share my own experience and to lessen the stigma of mental health is a big part of my own mission right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm, this company is going to continue to grow. Dr. Hamill is not here just to be a caretaker. She wants to grow the company, and I'm going to continue to meet with her on a regular basis to provide whatever advice she needs as she grows it, and I'll provide the financial side. So I'm kind of fading into the background, but I'm still very well connected to it. I got some personal stuff I want to do. I want to finish the Appalachian Trail. I'm halfway done with it. It's a 2,100 mile footpath, and I'm gonna finish it. Kim and I are traveling more, which has been great. There's things in the community that I enjoy doing. I've been involved with a lot of nonprofits over the last few years, and I think there's more I can do in that space. And not working, 60 hours a week enables me to do that.
Right.
So I'm going to keep one foot in the business, but not both feet.
Right.
And my other foot's going to be on the Appalachian Trail. It's going to be working with nonprofits. It's going to be, you gave me a golf tip a couple of weeks ago that really gave me some hope that I might be able to get the handicap down under about 15.
Have you been back out since?
No, but I've thought about it.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Good luck with that.
Right.
All right. Last question. What question should I have asked you both that I didn't?
I guess one question that would have been, if you could do it over again, starting up the business, what would you have done?
Okay. If you could do it all over again, and you're starting up a business, what would you have done?
I would have done everything faster. And what I mean by that is I would have hired a scheduler 2 years before I did. I would have hired an operations manager 2 or 3 years before I did. I would have used some offshore resources to do some of our operational work 3 years before I did. I spent way too much time doing those things myself when I should have been paying somebody to do them.
And why, I think I know the answer. Why didn't you hire those positions sooner?
I think there's 2 reasons: fear and ego. I was afraid to let go, and I thought nobody could do it as well as I can. And I hate to admit it, but fear and ego.
Yeah. Fair enough. Kim, what question should I have asked you that I didn't?
Probably, I look here and I'm looking at my children. Probably just a little bit how this has affected our family, and it's had some really positive influences. Our daughter now works for us, and we're really proud about that. And we can see maybe the possibility of her advancing even more into it. But it's been tough because mom and dad have been real busy, but I think
there were some impacts.
There's some impacts
when the kids were in high school and we were starting a company. There was definitely some impacts to our kids. Yeah.
But I think we also, and this goes back to our whole thing about how we have a love for counseling, is that we know when we need help and how to get help. And that's what's so great about Charlotte, is we did find out that there's a great mental health community here, and people, professionals are going to help other professionals.
Yeah. It's a very collaborative environment.
Yeah. I love these stories and hearing of the entrepreneurial spirit of you all, of Charlotte, of our country, of people that can come here and with an idea and hard work and turn it into something great that impacts many lives, like you both have done at Matone Counseling. I know you two should be celebrated because you're impacting lives in your backyard. And I'm grateful to know you, and thank you for coming on The Rebound.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks a lot.
Leadership is a learned behavior. We all lead in some way, shape, or form. We all deal with adversity. And when you do, I challenge you to rebound. I challenge you to learn and grow. If you'd like to contact me about executive coaching, workshops, or giving a keynote talk, you can reach me at dohertycoaching.com. That's DOHERTY coaching.com. Thanks for tuning in.